Alright, welcome back to another fantastic video of Unit 6. This is day 2, and this time I'm going to do the second half of this flip chart. So g of negative 4 is negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. That's this point right there. G of negative 1 is 5. Negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. G of 3 is negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Right there. The x-intercepts are negative 3 and 1. 1, 2, 3, and 1 right there. The g of x-intercept is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, it says f of x. That's kind of a mistake right there. The function is decreasing if x is less than negative 1. That makes no sense. This is a typo. This has got to be backwards. I remember this problem. It should be increasing if x is less than negative 1, because that's here. And it's also decreasing when x is greater than 1, negative 1. Boom, looks something like that. And the domain is all real numbers, which means we need arrows on both sides, pointing infinitely to the left and infinitely to the right, meaning the domain can be anything and not just what's in between those numbers. All right, great. Let's get to this lesson. That was in the first lesson video. This is the second continuation of that question. Maybe it wasn't. Yes, it was. Okay, so it's a continuation of that last question. What values of n makes the statement P of n equal 800 true? So when does it equal 800? 500, 600, 700, 800. It only equals 800 right there, so it has to be 10 degrees. Is that really degrees? That really doesn't make sense. How much is a function is how much the high temperature is above the normal. Oh, that makes more sense. So when it's 10 degrees above normal is when they'll make the most amount of money. I have to say, 10 degrees, that is frigid cold. That is a lot colder than your freezer. What is the meaning of your answer? Label that point on the graph. So that means that when it's 10 degrees more than average, they're going to make $800 profit at their store. That makes sense. When it's hot, people go to the pool store. Describe under what conditions your pool store will make a profit. So you'll make a profit as long as it's hotter than 4 degrees below normal, but it's also got to be less than 18 degrees above normal. So it can't be too hot. Can't be too hot, because you're gonna lose money then, because nobody wants to go to the pool when it's like 110 degrees out. No, it's too hot to be outside then. After n equals 10, the profit starts to decrease. Why do you think this happens? Because I believe I just answered that question. Because when it's too hot, people don't want to go out in the extreme heat. You might get sick. What are the n-intercepts of this graph? What do these intercepts represent? Well, these represent the 2 times when you either start making profit or when you stop making profit. That's what they represent. This is when they start making profit, and this is when they stop making a profit. What is P of n intercepts of the graph, and what does this intercept mean? Well, this P of n represents basically nothing. Basically, that just means that's how much profit you'll make when it's a normal average day, which is actually not a lot of profit. You actually want it to be hot. So that's what this represents. It represents how much profit you'll make on a normal day. What do you think the arrow on the right on the end of the graph means? It means that this graph is going forever. I should always, the never-ending story. Oh, it's never-ending because it goes on forever. Look at the graph below. What do you notice about the difference from the previous graphs that we have seen so far? What do you think about the arrow? It means that the graph is going to infinitely go to the right. Is this function continuous or discrete? Well, it's continuous because it's a line. It's all connected. It's not just dots. Write a functional statement for the point 2, negative 3. 2, negative 3 is right there. Functional statement would be negative 3 is a function of 2. Ooh, that's a weird statement because we don't know what anything represents. What is the domain of this function? That would be anything that is greater than or equal to negative 1, 2, 3, 4. Starts at negative 4, and it goes to the right infinitely. What is the range of this function? Well, it looks like the lowest point is negative 3. So f of x has to be greater than or equal to negative 3. That's the lowest point it goes, and it goes up infinitely because of this arrow. What are the x-intercepts of this graph? The x-intercepts are negative 3 and positive 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 3 and 4. Now, I was about to put a comma there, which I tell you not to do because a comma would have made it look like a coordinate. Negative 3 and 4. And what is the value of f of x at the x-intercepts? What is 0? They both if it's an x-intercept, it's got to have an f of x of 0. That's the whole point. It has a height of nothing. What is the f of x-intercept? Ooh, that's this one. That would be at -2. There's only one of them. And what is the value of x at that f of x-intercept? It's 0 again, because that point is to the left and to the right, 0. That's the whole point of an intercept. An x-intercept has a y of 0. A y-intercept has an x of 0. Done. Great. So let's move to the other half of the homework. So we already did the top half for homework on the other video, so let's do the bottom half. Oh, it looks like I didn't do these questions. I didn't realize these questions go with this graph. Okay, so let me go back and do that. Create an explicit rule for r of x and for h of x. An explicit rule. Well, h of x looks like it's 0.2 the entire time. So h of x equals 0.2. That's pretty easy because there's no x. There's no unknown here. We know h of x is going to be 0.2 the entire time. R of x is going to be, well, this is a decreasing. It's decreasing, which means we're talking about an exponential function. So it's starting point times the rate to power of x. Well, where is it at 1? That would be, it looks like it's at a half. So it looks like it's getting cut in half per. So for each one, so if it was half at 1, so at 2 it should be at a quarter. Yep, it's at a quarter. And then at 3 it should be at an eighth because it's getting cut in half each time. Sketch r of x minus h of x on the graph provided. Woo! Okay, f of x minus r of x. I'm sorry, r of x minus h of x. I got confused there. R of x minus h of x. R of x is 1 minus h of x is 0.2 would be 0.8 right there. Done. This point minus 0.2, that would be 0.5 minus 0.2 is 0.7, which would be right there. If it was 2, 2 is wait, did I do that wrong? I think I did. I'm sorry. Let me go back here. That does not seem correct. Erase that. 0.5 minus 0.2 is 0.3. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Basically, what you should notice is that this answer is going to basically mimic the purple, but with a little gap. That gap is equivalent to the gap of the blue. Tricky, tricky. These questions, I'm not so worried about these on tests. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this video, I know these questions, that it's been on like a couple of homeworks now. Don't worry about those. That's not something you're going to have to really see too much of. Where does f of x equal g of x? Well, they equal each other right there. Where? At 0, 3. Alright. Second question. What is f of 4 plus g of 4? F of 4 is, boom, 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 boom. Looks like about 3 to me. G of 4 is 1. 3 plus 1, oh, I don't know. 4. What is g of negative 2? G of negative 2 is right there. So that would say that's about 4. Minus f of negative 2 is about 3. 4 minus 3 equals 1. All right, so far pretty easy. On what interval is g of x greater than f of x? When is g of x above f of x? It's above it right here. So it stops being above at 0. So it's above when x is less than 0. Done. Anytime you have a domain that's less than 0, anything to the left of 0, f of x is above g of x. I'm sorry, backwards. G of x is above f of x. But then everything above 0, now f of x, the purple squiggly line, is now above the blue straight line. So that's not a part of the answer. All right, thanks again for watching. I know a lot of you probably watched this one because you got confused on this homework. All right, let me know if